So the video that I have to film today has been a very, very difficult one. I know I'll get emotional and I know I'll be questioned very, very hard about what is my motive for doing this video. This is actually my third time filming this. The last two, I've been trying to film this video for 2 years now, honestly. I feel like speaking up because it's about a really serious issue that is very prevalent right now. It's something that I experienced and I've briefly mentioned, but I haven't given the full story. And this is not a story time, but my purpose is to help other people who have gotten out of domestic abuse, abusive relationships, whether that be a partner, a spouse, a parent, a child, a friend, whoever. Any sort of abusive or toxic relationship is so common, but especially domestic abuse, I have a very, very soft spot in my heart for. And even moving forward with my companies, I plan on having, especially for Makeup Geek, having a small part of sales going to help domestic abuse shelters because it's something I'm very, very passionate about and something I have to focus on for myself. So that is my reasoning for saying this, is to bring awareness. I'm not going to make this a story time. I'm going to give you actual steps of what to look for when you're starting to date someone of domestic abuse, because I missed it. I'm sitting here. I almost have a master's degree. I was a few credits short of a master's degree. I have 2 businesses. I came from a great childhood, and yet here I am sitting at nearly 40 years old talking about domestic abuse. So if it can happen to me, I know it can happen, and it has happened to so many others, and it needs to be talked about. So with that in mind, I owe a huge apology to anyone out there who's ever been in an abusive relationship, because years ago, before I was in one, I used to have this mindset, well, why don't you just get out? How did you not see this coming? It's like all these questions in my mind that I didn't understand. And when it happened to me, I look back now and I feel so ignorant for having that mindset. But it is common, because if you haven't been in an abusive relationship, you wonder, why did they stay? Why didn't they see it coming? Why aren't they getting out? And I'll give you all the reasons for that. So I want not only those watching, if you've been in an abusive relationship, to not feel alone, but if you have a friend, which I guarantee that someone in your life is going through them, they're going to need you to help them get out. And you have to know what to look for to know that they're even in an abusive relationship, because guaranteed they will not talk about it. So I created an acronym in my mind of the kind of baby steps of what to look for, because when you're with someone, the abuse isn't obvious from the get-go. So imagine that you're going to a date, and I'm going to give a very stereotypical image. So you're going on a date, you're going to meet this guy, and you're thinking, well, if he's abusive, he's going to show up with like a wife beater shirt and tattoos, and he's going to come rolling in a Harley, and he's going to be really aggressive. Abusers, that is not the stereotype at all. You cannot even spot from the first gate that someone is abusive. They're very smart. Most of the time, they're very charismatic. They know how to hide it well. And so it's hard to spot from the beginning. For me, and I'm not going to bash anyone in my past. This is not a bashing session. I'm not even going to say who it was. I've been in multiple relationships, but the person that I was with was very charismatic, and that's what I fell in love with this person for. Very funny, and you don't see it coming. So usually what happens is the acronym is DEATH. And basically what happens to a relationship is it dies when there's an abuse, and it could end in death. I'm not saying this to be dramatic. We know from statistics that can very much happen. However, the death is the stages of what you're going to see. It's going to start with D, is going to be digs, or it's going to be distance. I'll explain it in a second. E stands for the emotional abuse. So even if it ends up being physical or sexual abuse, almost always it's going to start with emotional abuse. So it starts with little digs, and then it gradually grows into emotional abuse. And then the third one, A, is standing for anger. After the emotional abuse, you'll start to see signs of anger. After the anger happens, if you're still with them, then it starts going into threats. That's the T. After the threats, then it starts going into harm. So that is my acronym that I came up with to kind of show the steps. And I want to explain it very clearly just so everyone knows is how does this happen? How can you prevent being with someone that you know will be abusive? So D, the digs. In my case, it started off totally normal relationship. Everything's great. But there was started little digs. And by digs, I mean little comments about my weight. Oh, I've noticed you've gained a few pounds. You're still beautiful to me, but just thought I'd point that out. And I was like, well, that's kind of hurtful. Or it'd be something like, going out on a date, and this is like maybe the 8th or 10th date in. It's been months. Wear a cute outfit. Oh, why aren't you wearing the other outfit you had on our last date? That one was more flattering on you. And usually what happens, you start to see these little digs, but it's not so much to where you feel like, well, I've got it. This is a warning sign. It's not a red flag right away. It's a little dig, and you're like, and you'll maybe say something like, well, that was kind of hurtful. And then usually what the response is, oh, well, you know that I love you so dearly, and I wouldn't mean anything like that. So consistently having those digs over time, it does start to affect you, and it starts to affect your self-esteem. And that's what happened in my case. The other part is the distance. There's 2 Ds that I'm actually going to give you is distance. What happens with abusive people, it's not about the abuse. They aren't out to like trying to hit people. If that was a case, they'd just be hitting trees and hitting cars, and that may be the case too. With abusers, it's about control. And how do you get control over someone is to distance them from other people in their life. So that's what was happening for me. And it started like this. Hey, I'm going to go out and see my mom. We're going to go have some coffee together. I'll see you tomorrow. And the comment would be from the person I'm with, oh, well, I wanted to go spend time with you. Why do you want to spend time with your mom? I really wanted to do something with you tonight. And in your mind, it's no red flag at all because you're like, oh, that's really sweet. He really cares about me, wants to do something with me. Okay, let me reschedule with my mom. I'll do something with you. That starts becoming a pattern. And then the distance starts being said into sayings like, well, that, I would say like, hey, I'm going to hang out with my cousin. Well, your cousin doesn't love you as much as I do. It's almost like pinning you against them, making comments of them being in a very positive light, but anything that they could say or do to cause distance between you and the other person is a huge red flag, you guys. That is the first one you have to look out for. Is your friend, the person that they're with, or you yourself, the person that you're with, trying to distance you from your friends, from your mom, from your family, your business associates, anyone, if they feel like they're making it out that they truly love you and they want you to only spend time with them, that's not healthy. That's a red flag. So that's how it starts, is the D. Once you start staying in that, then it starts turning, the digs now get bigger. They're like, oh, well, I got away with this dig of me telling her that outfit's not flattering. Now it starts borderlining into emotional abuse. And this is where 98% of my abuse happened, was emotional abuse. And with those who out there who have gone through emotional abuse, it's almost even harder to get out of that than physical or sexual abuse, because it's not based off of a one instant thing. You can't pick up the phone and call 911 and say, hey, this person's like been bashing me for years now, telling me how fat I look, how my thighs are my problem area, this and that. They're going to be like, okay, there's nothing legally or, law enforcement can do about that. So if you're going through that emotional abuse, it's very hard to get out. And usually what happens by this point, because the digs, we started off with a D, have happened for so long, when it gets to larger comments that now are emotionally abusive, usually what happens is you fight, you argue, you may break up and get back together. And that's something that happened for me, breaking up, get back together many, many times. But that person, the abuser, is very smart, and they know how to smooth things over, send you flowers and say, I'm so sorry. I love you more than anyone else. And there's a smoothing over. And so that's how you kind of get stuck in it. And then what's the really sick and twisted part, you guys, is that over time of hearing that emotional abuse, you almost become immune to it. You've heard the digs for so long, and now it's bigger. Now it's emotional abuse, but you really think that it's you. They have a good way of making it out like, well, yeah, I do have problems with my thighs. And I know what you guys are thinking, that, well, emotional abuse, that's not like someone hitting you. I'm going to tell you why emotional abuse is just as bad as physical abuse. I will tell you my quick story, and I can't believe I'm admitting this, but I have to tell you so you understand. Emotional abuse is so devastating, and if it goes on long enough, it has very detrimental effects on someone. Your self-esteem gets really attacked. For me, one of the many things that was constantly attacked and digged at was my thighs. I have thick thighs. I've had them my whole life. And I heard for so long that my thighs were an issue. And you guys know I'm in a public eye, and I was stupid one time. And I shouldn't say that because that's not great lingo. I was not as knowledgeable. I wasn't thinking. And somehow I ended up on some guru site. It was like a gossip site. This was years ago. And they had a picture of me with my thighs and were talking about how big my thighs were, and actually took the time to circle my outer thighs to show how much of a problem area it was. And I had already heard that from the person I was with so many times. So it was like, it is me. Like, this is my problem. It's not this person saying that. I legitimately have it. So I actually went under the knife, and I've never talked about this at all. And the only reason I'm saying is the comments were so bad that I actually went under the knife to cut it out, thinking that I was the problem. So, sorry. Emotional abuse is I'm so passionate about speaking out against it, because it's not just your feelings get hurt or self-esteem. It can literally lead to you feeling depressed or taking drastic actions to fix what is supposedly wrong about you, and that's messed up. So emotional abuse cannot be taken lightly, because those who are going through it affects them long term. The things that they've heard over time and multiple times, that emotional trauma lives with them for the rest of their life. So it is abusive. So that's the E. After the E, and I'm so sorry I'm getting so emotional, you guys, because I really this is such an important video. I need you to stay with me to the end, because I want to explain it all. Anger. After the emotional abuse, you will start to see signs of anger. And I know what you guys are thinking. Why didn't you escape at this point? When the emotional abuse is so bad, it's almost like abusers' tactic is, let me beat them down internally first, because when something bigger happens that is more of a red flag, they're too beat down and sad and depressed to leave, because they feel like it's them. It's a tactic. It's a control tactic. So when you see the anger, and this is what I saw bouts of anger that I hadn't seen before. Sorry, that's lady. That was a red flag, but by that point, I was so beat down and so tired and exhausted, I still didn't leave, because it was like I was manipulated into staying and truly thinking at that time that this person still loved me. Well, I love you more than anyone else. It was all these comments of manipulation where you truly believe that this person still loves you despite the abuse that you're hearing. So that's warning signs. After the anger, then it goes into threats. You'll start hearing threats about, well, if you say anything, then I'm going to destroy your public image. I'll go public with this. Or I will, embarrass you in front of your family. It starts making threats now. And by this point, the reason that they stay is because they're scared, because they're afraid of the threats that have been told them will happen. So now, instead of staying because you haven't seen the red flags, or because now that inside emotionally and mentally you're beat down, it's now you're threatened, you're scared. And then the last one is the hurt. And this is where the physical or sexual abuse comes in, because, hey, we've gotten away with saying all of this and putting you down internally first. Now we can have a physical thing happen. And that's what happened in my case. And that was ultimately, for me, the moment that I decided to leave. And I won't tell the exact story because it's very traumatizing for me to say, but there was one night in April of 2016. And I remember it specifically every day, every second. I remember it because it was so traumatic. And there was a physical exam that happened where basically I was choked out. I tried to leave. I won't get into all the details. And after that point, now I was trying to get out, but I was very scared. And I was embarrassed. That's the other thing too, is you're embarrassed and you're afraid to talk out, because then everyone's going to be like, well, why didn't you get out? Why are you staying? And it almost makes you feel like I've done something wrong now for staying with this person. So that was my red flag. With all of that being said, please stay with me. I want to tell you guys, if you were in an emotional abuse relationship, I want to tell you how you can get out, or if you know someone who's in one, how can you help them? If you have a friend that's in that, and I know from my position, my family, all of them, it's like my cousins and my mom and my aunties, they were trying, it was almost like a family intervention. Like, Marlena, we see that you are like, something's not right. You are not the same person. We see you're sad. Something's going on. My family had to pretty much have an intervention to tell me to get out. And that was a wake-up call. But what the first approach is to sit that person down and say, you know how much I love you. I see that you're hurting. I don't know what's going on with you in relationship, but it's none of my business right now. But however, I'm really worried about you, and just know I'm here for you. Just say something like that, so they know in the back of their mind that they sense something going on and they just want to be there for you. Just be constant presence in them. If that person pushes you away, please don't give up on them. I know it's going to be hard for family members who have to like witness someone going through an abusive relationship. The only thing that they are going to be able to count on is knowing that even if they push you away or insist that they're not in an abusive relationship, that you're still there and you're still present. So just be there for them and be insistent. And as you start to see things unraveling, you're in your approach, it has to be very careful, because the person who is abused is scared and embarrassed, and they're not going to admit that they're in an abusive relationship because of that. So you just have to say, I want to help you. How can you don't seem happy, or I'm worried. What can I do to help you? And just constantly reiterating that to them is going to be the biggest thing you could ever do, you guys, because it's going to take that. I was so scared to leave in the end that I remember the day too, I was calling my mom. It was after the choking incidents. I was in LA. I'm not going to tell the whole story. But long story short, I freaked out. I was like, I've got to get out at this point. And I would not have been able to do that if it wasn't for my mom. My mom, I flew to go see her. We had big black garbage bags dumping all of my stuff in and escaping, and I went to stay with her. And if it wasn't for my mom help, I don't think I would have been strong enough internally to get out, because I was so beat down that I could not do it on my own. So you have to be there for your friend or whoever it is that's going through that. They need you. So more tears. So that if you were in that circumstance and you feel like you're afraid to speak out, you are not alone. You didn't do anything wrong. First off, you are not guilty. Don't feel ashamed. Don't feel embarrassed. And then secondly, don't be afraid to speak out. Even if you're worried about your safety, do it very subtly. Meet your mom or meet your sister or whoever for lunch and be like, look, this is what's going on. I need you to still love me. I can't get out right now, but I just need you to know that I need help. Don't be afraid to ask for help, you guys. If you're in it, you have to depend on people to help you. Let them know. They aren't going to think of you differently. They're not going to blame you. They want to be there for you. So let them know. And then for me, what I did is I just did it when I could. When that person was out of my home, I went in, got my stuff, and then I made a plan. So you have to make a plan. Who's going to help you? The more of your family members and friends that you can get together to rely on and make sure that you're safe, that's the biggest thing that you can do, is get everyone you know to be there for you. So wherever you're going to escape to stay with them. Just at the end of the day, you have to make sure you're safe. And then when you feel comfortable, or if you have to do this right away, obviously let law enforcement know. For me, I got a restraining order. I had to step in and do what I had to do to make sure that I was safe and that my mom was safe. So that is all that I have to say on getting out. I want you guys to understand my reasoning for doing this video. I swear it's not to play a victim. I don't want you to pity me or anything like that. I want there to be awareness. I want there to be conversations that this is legit an issue going on, you guys. It is an epidemic and no one is talking about it because they are afraid and they are embarrassed, and we have to talk about it and know that you're not alone so that you can get out and be safe. So my promise on my end right now, I have some items that we're selling on the Makeup Geek site, and we have, I think it's like $10 for each of the sets, like 2 palettes that are put together. $10 of that is going to go to Houston Area's Women's Center. It's a domestic abuse shelter in Houston, Texas that I've personally visited, I've connected with, and I plan on supporting them as much as I can right now. So if you guys want to support that, by buying these 2 palettes, I'll link to it below, but if you'd rather just go straight to them, I'll link to hawc.org as well if you want to make a direct contribution to them, or if you want to donate items that they need. I want this to be an awareness. If you guys have shelters in your area and you need to escape to one, use them. Look up domestic abuse shelters in your area that you feel that you can go to be safe. And so that's my passion moving forward. And I'm making a promise to myself that as Makeup Geek, when it rebrands, my focus right now is to take a portion of all sales and have that go to abusive shelters, because I'm so passionate about that and I have to, for myself, make a difference somehow. So that's my promise. So I hope this video was helpful, you guys. I'll link a lot of information below of places you can call to get help, shelters, anything that you guys need. Be safe, and you're not alone.